This podcast is being sponsored by the Rise Up Project.
Trust the process. Pain is power. All great things take time. I am unbreakable. Unbreakable.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unbreakables Podcast, episode 8. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with the co-founder of LifeAid Beverage Company. With 6 specially formulated blends, LifeAid products can be found in thousands of gyms, golf courses, and retailers nationwide. FITAID has been the official recovery drink for the Reebok's Crossfit Games and the official sponsor of the U.S. Spartan race. Since before running my first Spartan race, FITAID has been my number one go-to drink and one of my long-time goals to have on this show. So without any further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Aaron Hinde.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No, thank you so much, man. So as I mentioned earlier, I just really want to dive into really your mindset. But if we can, I always like to start my podcast and really kind of taking it back just a little bit before FITAID, before LifeAid was founded. So
Sure.
Who was Aaron? Let's say, I know your company was founded, in 2011?
Correct.
So who were you before? Let's take it back just a little bit, just so our viewers at home can kind of understand how far you had to come.
Yeah. Well, I was always a hustler, going back to high school and college. In college, I had a little supplement business out of my dorm room. I was, mowing lawns and, any way I could get out there and work and hustle and put my mind to things. And prior to LifeAid, I was actually a sports chiropractor for 10 years here in Santa Cruz County, had a great practice, 30 new patients every month by referral, and, really a very comfortable life, and really enjoyed doing that and working with athletes of all skill level, from professional baseball and football players, down to the high school level. So it was a great run. But I had that itch and drive for entrepreneurship, and that kind of kept me going and got me into this next endeavor at LifeAid.
So how long would you say that you had that itch? Let's talk about that moment just a bit. Would you say, aside from it being an itch, did you feel like you felt at that point when you were a chiropractor and you had that business, did you feel unfulfilled, as if there was more purpose for your life?
I really did. After a certain point, I could only see so many patients a day. I was pretty maxed out on what I can do in kind of a, manual, very hands-on, one person at a time model. And I knew I was having an incredible health impact on those patients. I was, one of the best, if not the best, chiropractor around. It's just, I got great results, and the referrals were there because people got great results. But at a certain point, I'm like, well, I can only affect, so many people, about, 400 new people every year. And so there was always a drive to have, a greater impact, a larger impact. And it was really out of, 2 things. It was out of, passion and ignorance that got us into the beverage industry. I was looking around, and the big beverage companies for literally 100 years have gotten away a free pass for poisoning our kids with high sugar, artificial sweeteners like sucralose and aspartame. And I had just had enough. There was lack of transparency in the labeling. Tons of drinks out there had 2 servings per container, when everyone knows you drink the whole thing at once. And it was just kind of a mess of an industry, when we came in, and we wanted to set the bar much higher than had previously been set. And it was that kind of drive to create better for you products that we know could be efficacious, that tasted great, and had low to no sugar with none of the artificials that got us into it. Now, we had no beverage experience and didn't know what we were doing, so that's where the ignorance kicks in, and thank God we were ignorant, or else we probably would have never made it this far.
So it literally started with just a thought, and that feeling and that passion, like you knew you wanted to make a bigger impact in this world. So did you automatically know you wanted to start a beverage company, or it was just like, you know what, let's just try it out? and see what happens?
Well, I had always been, very interested in sports nutrition and its impact on performance, brain health, well-being. And, I met my business partner, Orion, in a CrossFit gym in 2009. And we started hanging out together, and we would always spitball different ideas that we had. We're both, young entrepreneurs, and this one, stuck. It was always like, if we had ideas and then the next day we were like, hey, that was actually a good idea after, having a couple glasses of wine and spitballing, it was one of those that stuck around. And after a couple months of discussing it, we said, let's make a run at this thing. And we put our savings at the time in the mutual pot in the middle, and we were off to the races.
So what would you say just your initial startups were? Like, did you guys have a savings, or did you literally start from ground zero?
Yeah, no, it took a little capital to get going. I mean, we each put $30,000, so not a king's ransom in the beverage industry, but it's what we could scrape together at the time. So we started the company with 60 grand total. And that, got us a little ways in this industry. We did have to, go out and fundraise from friends and family to really get things off the ground. It's very capital intensive business.
And I'm sure it was also pretty competitive, considering that there were many other beverages on the market, and to your point, a lot of unhealthy drinks, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you back up to 2011, energy drinks were selling through the roof. You just had on the scene some early kombuchas and coconut waters, but even those were very acquired taste. They were very, hippy dippy, for lack of a better word. They were high in sugar still, and the energy drinks really had that cool lifestyle branding. They were the cool products, but they weren't healthy for you. If you poll 100 energy drink drinkers, not one of them is going to tell you they drink them for health reasons, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so we wanted to combine kind of the health aspects that were just emerging with, like, kombuchas for gut health and coconut water for hydration, with, kind of the cool, sexy, hip branding that the energy drinks had going for them, and bring those two concepts together and create like cool lifestyle drinks that were actually good for you. And that's where LifeAid came, vitamins you'll actually enjoy drinking. And as you mentioned, FITAID's been a huge success as a post-workout recovery drink. We're selling the heck out of Immunity Aid right now. Immunity Aid, with the coronavirus scare that's going on. And we have Party Aid, we have Focus Aid.
Sales are rising right now.
Yeah. So we've got something for lots of different use occasions.
Nice. So for those that do not know what FITAID is, what are the benefits of drinking that drink?
Yeah, FITAID is the number one post-recovery drink in America. It's super clean, so none of our drinks contain any artificial colors, flavors, or sweeteners, so no sucralose or aspartame that's going to kill your gut microbiome. It's got efficacious dose of vitamins and supplements in each of our cans. So each of them has a different use occasion and has a different vitamin blend. So specifically with FITAID, it's got typical supplements you'd take for recovery: BCAAs, glutamine, arginine, omega-3 fatty acids, a full B complex, vitamin C, vitamin D3, glucosamine, coenzyme Q10, whereas Immunity Aid has echinacea, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D, astragalus, chamomile, ginger. Focus Aid is heavy in nootropics, which are very much on trend for brain health right now, with the natural caffeine hit with yerba mate and green tea. So, they each have a different blend that we bring to the table.
And I like too how they have different styles depending on, each marketing. Like, for instance, this one, the Focus Aid. Guys, I could attest to this, and these drinks are amazing. And if you have not tried one, I advise you guys to go out and get one.
They work. I mean, I love Focus Aid.
Good workout. I love them.
Yeah. Focus Aid's my go-to after lunch when I'm getting a little tired or I feel like taking a nap. I mean, the blend of a little bit of a natural caffeine with the nootropics, it snaps me right back into flow state. It's a great product.
Absolutely. So let's take it back just a little bit to because I've listened to a couple of interviews that you were in, and you talk about when you literally started the business and you moved your family into a trailer park. You were let go of the business. You were living on macaroni and cheese, cans of tuna all day. Let's touch base on those, because I mean, I'm sure not many people know that, right?
Yeah. So, it was a interesting and challenging history. I'll back up a little bit to 2007, actually. So a few years before we started the company, I had a successful chiropractic practice. I was doing, very well, as I mentioned. And I, looked around and several of my friends were paper millionaires from purchasing real estate. And so my timing wasn't too stellar, but I decided to get heavily into the real estate game in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know what happened in 2009, the big crash that happened in 2008, 2009. And I literally found myself, having negative cash flow to the tune of, $20,000-$25,000 a month. I was bringing in plenty of income, $50,000 a month, but had 70, 75 going out. Wow. Due to these investments. And so I really hit rock bottom in 2009. I had to file, I chose to file for bankruptcy, lost everything. The only thing I didn't lose was my student loans, which were $240,000 in student loans from undergrad in chiropractic college. So right before that had happened, we had purchased some raw land up here in Santa Cruz, where I'm at right now. You can see behind me, up in the mountains. And there was nothing on it, totally off the grid, no power, no septic, no water, no nothing.
Wow.
And bought a 400 square foot trailer and moved my wife and two young kids into it with the vision to build our dream house on the top of the property, where it's got beautiful ocean views. You can't quite see behind me, but the ocean's right back there. And so that was the plan. We're just going to live in the trailer for, 6 months, a year most, and build our dream house.
So did that take a lot of convincing from your wife?
She's a trooper. It's amazing. For growing up in San Francisco and Santa Cruz, she was a trooper. We were heating up water on the stove and pouring it in for baths and eating, pretty lean and out of ice chests. Well, this, bankruptcy happens and then the decision to start LifeAid happens. Well, and those two things coming together significantly push back the plans to build a dream house. So I actually sold my chiropractic practice, and I got a fair price for it. But I made a major mistake for any entrepreneurs out there. Take the cash up front, never do terms. I agreed to terms, and the person that I sold the practice to turned my golden goose that was laying golden eggs, and he strangled it somehow, and he just stopped paying me after about 6 months. And so here I go from literally living off of that income on the sale of my practice, those monthly checks, because LifeAid was just getting going. We just started it, and we had not been paying ourselves yet. And so I went to zero income. So you can imagine still having property payments, still having student loan payments, and still needing food, and living here in California.
And
then all of a sudden, and a family and two young kids that required diapers and all of that, to literally no income. And that was very challenging times for us. And that's where, we were eating mac and cheese with cans of tuna inside, multiple times a week for dinner. And I mean, we were living as lean as you could possibly live. And then, fortunately, we got to a point where we could pay ourselves $1,000 a month from LifeAid, and then up to $3,000. Once we hit $3,000, it was like the promised land. It was like, oh, we can actually, go to a movie once a month and that type of thing. But, those going from being a high income earner to being completely broke, and worse than broke, because I was broke and had no credit. It taught me a lot. It taught me about frugality. It taught me, to always be prepared for hard times. It taught me, the value of money. I just wasted a lot of money when I was making a lot of money. I wasted it on stupid stuff, just excessive insurance and, dumb payments on
right?
things that we didn't need, so learning to live kind of lean and mean and appreciate, what you do have, appreciate when you have things that are paid off. It was a necessary, obstacle in my life to help get us, to where we're at now.
So how long would you say from the time that you gave up the chiropractic business to start LifeAid, living, literally with nothing, eating the cans of food and macaroni and cheese, how long would you say you went through those trenches for?
Oh, it was a good, 2 years of completely struggling. I mean, I still have not built my dream house. I'll tell the audience that we're still living. We've actually upgraded our trailer. We've upgraded our trailer. We live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, prefabricated modular home, which is, it's comfortable. When you go from 400 square feet to 1,200 square feet, it's like living in a mansion. So no
slowly but surely, right? No, because I know there's a misconception. The people that are aware of entrepreneurship and starting a business, you're obviously going to start off as a solopreneur, right?
Right.
But there's sometimes a misconception that once you start a business, you can start paying yourself. But it also goes into when you have to build a team. So you talk about, there came a point when you started paying yourself $1,000, then $3,000. How long would you say that time was? And what advice can you give those entrepreneurs that are looking to start a business that don't really understand?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give conflicting advice here, because part of my advice to succeed at some point in time, you have to burn the ships at the shore. You have to. You have to push all in. It's the only way to thrive in your endeavor. At the same time, when you have responsibilities like a family, you got to make sure you're thinking very accurately before you burn the ships at the shore, before you push all in.
Calculated risks, right?
Yeah, because it's not just, if I was, 20 something and had no debt and was, couch surfing, I'd have no problem, pushing all in. But when you have responsibilities, it still chokes me up to think of the risk that I put my family in. And we could have been easily out on the streets,
and you could have lost everything.
Yeah, we really did lose everything. It's just, fortunately, we were able to hold on to the property that we're living on now, and live very, very frugally and lean and mean for a while. But it's not something I would advise people have to suffer through. It's just, those were really tough times. Really tough.
Absolutely. And how would you, in those darkest moments, what allowed you to develop such a strong mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because you could only have a pity party for so long, and now I really, my intent is to shorten my pity parties to be non-existent or have very short existence. So a few big turning points. Number one, mindset's, huge. When I was a high income earner, I actually, in retrospect, was in a scarcity mindset. And when I was totally broke, I developed an abundance mindset, and which pulled me out of being broke. So being in an abundance mindset, you cannot have growth in any area of your life if you come from a place of scarcity. That's number one.
Powerful.
Yeah, extremely powerful. Number two, developing a morning routine. I am, very big on, in 2019, there was a concept that I really educated our team on, and it was around, what I call the ATM of life. We go to the ATM machine to pull out cash. I believe life can be an ATM that continues to pay dividends as long as you follow the acronym A, being alignment.
Love that.
Alignment, trajectory, momentum, and I can go into each of those. But alignment, number one, with yourself. What are you doing when no one else is looking, type of thing? What if everything you did showed up on the front page of the New York Times? Would you be okay with that? So setting my morning alignment and trajectory were huge. So having a morning routine that I continue to have added to over the years and continue to follow every morning to this day, starting at 5:30 in the morning, and it runs me till I walk into the office in the morning.
So what would you say, what are some examples of your daily rituals and your disciplines that you can share with us?
Yeah, I'll give you the whole thing. I mean, I wake up at 5:30. I've recently started doing about 20 minutes of yoga. My body was just always aching and sore. And so I'll do yoga, foam roller, the so right, and, just kind of stretching for 20 minutes. Then I'll fill out the 5-minute journal, which is a gratitude journal. 3 things I'm thankful for, 3 things that'll help make today great. 1 self-affirmation, hop in the shower, and then I'll do 1 round of Wim Hof breathing, which you can check out online if you're not familiar with it. Then I'll shut the hot water off and do a cold plunge after the Wim Hof round. I'll make some keto coffee with some MCT oil and full-fat cream. I'll make the kids breakfast. I do a short morning prayer with my son as I take him to school. As he's exiting the car, I'll do a ritual where we both say in unison, "Today is a fabulous day filled with opportunity and potential." The reason I say that is years ago, I was at a seminar, this is probably 20 years ago now, and the top hypnotist in the world was one of the keynote speakers, Marshall Silver. I ran into him at the bar later, and I'm, fresh out of college, totally broke. And I said, "Marshall, if there's one thing I can do, that's really going to help, my, position in life, what would it be?" I'm looking for like that one, silver bullet. And he says, "Wake up every morning and say, 'Today is a fabulous day filled with opportunity and potential.'" Ooh. And he said, 10 years from now, you'll be $1 million richer. I said, all right, sold. So I've been doing that ever since.
Like that easy, right?
That easy. And then I drive down close to the beach. I walk about half a mile. I'll sit right when the sun's coming up and soak up the vitamin D. I do a much deeper round of Wim Hof breathing with the breath hold. And then it leads me into about 5 minutes of meditation where I just go through all my senses. Then I bury my hands in the sand and ground myself, walk back to the car and head into the office. So I'm ready to rock and roll.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for sharing. So how important is it in instilling those daily rituals, your belief system in your kids at such a early age?
Huge. Unfortunately, I was so absorbed with being an entrepreneur and not wanting to fit my fear of failing again, in this business, that I was, constantly on the road when they were young, and I missed out on, a lot of opportunities in their early development years. And the more, mature that I got, the more I realized how important that was. And really that was all that was important. I was doing all these things because I thought it was for them, but really they only needed me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they need me more than anything. Your kids don't know if you're broke or not. I mean, people always say, "Oh, we're waiting to have kids until, we're not broke." I'm like, your kids don't know that you're broke. Like they don't know. They don't have anything to compare it to. So just knowing how much happens between 0 and 7 years old and the importance of that mindset, just, wanting to steer them down a path of abundance, of manifesting their own reality, of realizing the power of thought, the power of voice, of the words that come out of their mouth, the power of intention. And that's something that I don't force upon them, but I really work to, reinforce, I should say, by, some of the actions and things that I say.
So how does one become more intentional and present when it comes to balancing work life and family? What are a couple tips that you can on that?
Yeah, great question. First of all, there is no difference. It's just life. What happens at work will affect you at home, I guarantee you, and what happens at home affects you at work. So there is no work life and family life. It's all life. It's all life. And, I truly believe we need to be living the best version of it. There will never be balance. It's not a scale that, you're, I need more time. Because when we think of balance, we think of time. right? Everyone thinks of time balance, and it's not, as an entrepreneur, there's no such thing as time balance. It might be 90% work, 10% family. Does that mean that I can't have balance? No, it does not. I can't it's not possible necessarily to have time balance, but what I can have is I can have balance with intention. So as long as you are extremely intentional about the time that you do have, really connecting with that person one-on-one, making sure that they are being heard, then you can have 10 minutes, and that could be the best 10 minutes of your day and of their day. So being extremely intentional about that time, being present with the time that you have, that makes all the difference.
You guys heard it first. Be intentional and be present in everything that you guys do, and I'm sure your life will change, right?
It really will. I mean, the best example of it, and I had the amazing experience of actually meeting this man back in 1996, and this man is Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, for anyone old enough out there to actually have watched
like Fred was it Mr. Rogers, the neighborhood one?
Yes, it's a beautiful day in your neighborhood. So last night I actually watched the new movie out with what's his name, Tom Hanks played Mr. Rogers and nailed it. And watching Mr. Rogers, and then having met him and I had the opportunity to spend about 10-15 minutes talking to him in my college years. I mean, the guy, there's no better example of being completely present and intentional and being such a compassionate, active listener. I mean, all of those things I'm severely lacking, in my own life and self-discipline. So he's a hero of mine that I look to emulate for sure.
So that's great to hear. Now I need to check out that movie.
Yes, please do.
Aside from Mr. Rogers, who would you say your top 3 influences are and why? Yeah,
number one, my father. Just a great example of, there's 2 types of people in this world. In my opinion, there's the people that point the finger out, and there's people that point fingers in, meaning everything is always out of their control, and they're always victims of their circumstances, or taking the full accountability for everything happening in your life. And my dad is a great example of taking accountability, never being one to take government subsidies, even though we were completely poor, right? Growing up, and he could have, and making no money and working hard, and just he always had the right attitude about it. And even now, watching him older in life, he just turned 70. My mom's got severe Alzheimer's disease, severe. I mean, doesn't know anybody's name, and can't feed herself or bathe herself or anything. And just how he's still there, by her side, and taking care of her at such a huge burden and cost. He's definitely my number one. And then other people in my life, Ben Altadonna, a good friend of mine, taught me how to be a marketer, gave me a $25,000 loan with no paperwork and no interest and no strings attached when we really needed it, and just said, pay him back when I can. To people that I've never met that I admire from afar, like Richard Branson,
he's
who
great.
is just an amazing brand builder, appears to enjoy every moment of life and lives life to its fullest.
Man, I love that. Thank you so much. So what would you say your daily challenges are as an entrepreneur today?
Oh man, there are so many challenges.
We could see LifeAid, we could see FITAID and be like, man, this brand blew up. But I mean, I'm sure you're still going up that hill, right? So what are some things that you face still?
Well, it's a good question. As part of it is there are always obstacles. The obstacles actually get bigger the bigger you get and the bigger your brand gets. They don't get smaller or easier. They get bigger. So there's no avoiding obstacles. There's daily obstacles. I had tons of obstacles this last week, right? with this coronavirus scare and all this, hysteria. It's really in how you view your obstacles, number one. Perspective, meaning we don't call anything problems at LifeAid. There are no problems. There's challenges, okay? Because challenges can be overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So, part of our core tenets is to come with solutions, not problems. So we have challenges, and then we brainstorm solutions to those. So that perspective is important. And then also understanding that, as Ryan Halliday says in his book, the obstacle is the way, right? Like if everything is hunky-dory in life, if everything's just totally easy and kosher and smooth sailing, you never change your behavior.
Yep. There's
why would you change your behavior, right? So there's no growth. So when you have obstacles that force you to grow and force you to deal with challenging situations, I get excited now. Like I'm super excited right now with all this hysteria because
chaos, right?
I know there's growth opportunities for me, for the company. Like it's exciting. So anytime there's major times of challenges, it's like, you get a little overwhelmed, and then, the demon's trying to talk into your shoulder and talk shit. And it's like,
right.
Okay, wait a second. Let's put this in perspective. This too shall pass. We'll get through it just like we have every other obstacle before us. And this is actually a good thing because it's going to elicit some growth. And we know that growth leads to more opportunities and continues to steepen our trajectory in a positive direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would you say your top 3 tools and strategies for success are, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I've already mentioned one of them, morning routine. Breathing, really practicing and working on breathing and oxygenating the body. And, some of this kind of more hippy dippy type stuff is powerful. I mean, the power of mindset. So another powerful strategy that I have implemented in my own life, and we're running people through the training at LifeAid, is a course called Procabulary. Okay. Some people out there may know that abracadabra, the term that we heard as kids that magicians use, abracadabra, is actually Aramaic. And what it means, what it translates to is, with my words, I create. With my words, I create. I'll bet, and powerful. I don't speak Aramaic, I'll bet if I did... Yeah, it's powerful. If I did speak Aramaic, I would challenge that the true meaning is, with my thoughts I create. With my thoughts I create. But even as with my words I create, I know that my thoughts become actually, let me back up. I know that my beliefs dictate my thoughts. My thoughts become my words. My words become my actions. My actions over time become results. So a tactic that's important... It's powerful. A tactic that's important is to eliminate soft talk and negations from your vernacular. Soft talk and negations. Soft talk is like this. Yeah, I might come over this weekend. I should do that. I might do this. I could do that. It's non-committal talk, and it's killing your relationships. It's killing your leadership ability. It's killing your business. Negations are, I can't, I won't, I don't. Why are you focusing on what you can't do or you won't do? Right? All you're doing is bringing those to reality. Focus on the affirmation, what you do have control over, what you can do, what you do have an effect on, what you will do. You make those slight changes in your vocabulary. It's powerful to see the ripple effect.
Yeah, that is so powerful. I'm going to play that back, and I know I'm going to make some clips out of that one, because that, I feel many people could relate to that one.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those, like, I can't, or maybe, and I can even be honest, sometimes I fall short of that, but I realize, like, in order for me to commit to other people, I need to commit to myself first.
Absolutely.
So I really
it comes back to getting that alignment. Alignment starts with yourself and then with your significant other, your business partner, your team, but you need to have alignment with yourself first.
So what advice can you give when it comes to selecting a business partner? How was that for you?
The number one piece of advice is have very open communication. I'm going to give 2 pieces of advice. Have very open communication on roles and responsibilities and who has ultimate authority over what. Number two, enjoy the ride. You got to enjoy the ride. You got to be around people that you enjoy being around, or what's the point? All of my mentors would every single one of them would tell me, enjoy the ride. And I always been like, screw you, you're a multimillionaire. I'm totally broke living in a trailer eating macaroni and cheese and tuna. Enjoy the ride. But now I realize that I'm, in my mid 40s. It's like, we have one life to live. What are we waiting around for some magical moment when we can be happy? Be happy right now. It's a choice. So enjoy the ride is super important. Keep the communication up. And I'm going to actually give a third bonus piece of advice on partnership. You have to check your ego at the door. How many decisions, how many fights are ego driven and ego driven only? And this has been a big challenge for me because I am a fiery person. I get very passionate about things. And so learning to take a breath, examining my own thoughts and motivation, be the silent observer of my own mind and go, where is this coming from? Mm-hmm. And most of the time it's coming from a place of ego. And when you recognize that it's ego driven, then you can take a breath, you can let things calm down again, and you can approach things much more rationally. And you follow those three things, you'll have a good partnership.
I really appreciate that. And I'm going to run that back as well. So for our listeners that are at home that have a product, maybe a thought, a service, whatever it is, let's just say it's product specific, what advice can you give them when it comes to reaching out to potential prospects, retailers, whether it's a gym, CrossFit, whatever it is, like a tangible product?
Well, the power's not in your product or service, it's in your list. So whatever you can do, build and create a list and continue to provide value to that list. Because whatever product or service that you launch, a lot of our, early investors and early consumers in LifeAid were very happy chiropractic patients of mine, right? They supported me then and they support me here, right? So you build a list, communicate with them, add value to them. And the second thing is, test it on Amazon. Amazon is the world's greatest marketplace. There's shelf space for everybody. You don't have to pay slotting fees. It actually has very decent contribution margin, even though it gets a bad rap if you actually dissect it and look at it for the expense that most retailers charge for slotting fees and promotional calendars and that kind of thing. So I would go with Amazon first.
Awesome. And before FITAID and LifeAid became what it is today, when did you finally realize, like, holy crap, it finally all paid off?
Well, a couple.
Many times people want to throw in the towel. They want to quit because there's no ROI right away, right?
Yeah, it took us a good year and a half, 2 years. And once we finally got our gym marketing down where, before we were opening up maybe 5 new gyms a month. And then we would ring the bell in the office every time we get a new gym. And then, we got our marketing down and got our offer down. And then we open up a new gym, ring the bell, and then 2 in a day. And then we got 30 in 1 month. Then we got 50 in a month, then 150 in a month, then 200 a month. And then once we started getting like over 100 a month, I'm like, okay, we're on to something here. That was probably big step number 1 for us. And then number 2, when we finally got interest from institutional investor and got private equity funding from a very respected firm, Carp Riley, on the East Coast. That really was an emotional time for me because I'm like, wow, we've created a real business here that professional investors want to participate in, which was special.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm like super glad that you guys created this because I absolutely love it. So what is next for you guys?
What is next? Well, today we launched FITAID, which you're drinking right now, zero sugar line. So that you're drinking our low-cal version. We have a zero sugar version, naturally sweetened with monk fruit and stevia. So I'm super stoked on that. We have
great too, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's an awesome product. Same nootropic blend as FITAID with monk fruit stevia, naturally sweetened. And our LifeAid CBD line has been just hitting it out of the park. It's got 20 milligrams of broad spectrum hemp, multiple cannabinoids. Great product, great tasting, and people have been loving that one as well.
Really, really, man, I'm so excited for you guys. So last question, how do you intend to leave a legacy?
Good question. My legacy, I think, will be determined by how many people show up at my funeral. I read something the other day.
You
It's
know,
like
that's
we
so
build.
crazy. That's all I keep thinking about.
Yeah. I mean, so I believe there are no neutral interactions in life, that we're either making an emotional deposit or an emotional withdrawal to everyone every second of every day. And being very conscious of that, I want my legacy to be that of emotional abundance, where people know me as the person that constantly makes deposits to their emotional bank account. And that's it. And through our products, through podcasts like this one, through mentorship, through any way that I can provide value, through the school of hard knocks that I've been through a few times around now.
Man, I absolutely love it. And I think that's a great perspective to think, because it's one of those things, like, I think for me in particular, like, I've always been, fully aware, but I think especially when the passing of Kobe Bryant, it really, really hit home for everybody. But It kind of puts things in perspective, like, holy crap, like, what kind of legacy am I going to leave behind? And
Right.
as you mentioned, like, who's going to be at my funeral? What do I want my tombstone to say? So I think that, your point, it's real, it's really, really real.
It's a part of being human, and so many people, especially now with the hysteria, have a real fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're truly living, then we can't be afraid of dying. And, Kobe was a great example of that. He was living life to the fullest, even in death. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, I really, really appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And if you can, just tell our viewers where they can contact you, where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, for the brand, at FITAID's our largest Instagram following. For me personally, at all handles, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, at Aaron Hinde, Aaron Hinde.
Perfect, man. I really appreciate you.